I know probably you must have made up your mind to start poultry farming, but you are still kind of confused and looking for someone to convince you whether to do broiler farming or layer farming. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you an unbiased opinion and tell you the differences between broiler and layers. Everything you need to know about it: marketing, profitability, risk, disease conditions, which one will make you more money. And along the way, I'll tell you some personal stories that I've encountered running these two different beds the same time. And if you watch the video to the end, I will tell you how you can run the two alongside, especially if you have a tight budget. And the video is starting right now. In simple terms, without beating around the bush, the difference between a broiler and a layer is that broilers are birds that are just raised to be slaughtered and eaten. You know, they have deeper muscle tissues, so they have more meat. They convert every feed given to them to meat and to weight within the shortest possible time. Say 6 weeks, broiler is already matured to be eaten. While layers take their time and they are genetically made to produce eggs. They produce more eggs, they convert their feed to eggs. Table eggs, unfertilized eggs, unless you introduce a male to do the fertilization. But apart from that, layers just produce eggs, table eggs that you can consume daily. Broilers can also produce eggs, unfertilized eggs, if you are capable to leave them that long, but economically it's not wise because you have to spend a lot of money. Unless you are raising 1 or 2 broilers behind your house, that's a condition you can leave them, but they would along the way encounter a lot of challenges because the more they are converting their feed to meat, they are getting heavier and it's affecting their bones and other of their body activity. While layers, leaving them for 18 to 20 weeks is a time for the reproductive system to gradually develop for it to be able to start laying these table eggs sold in the market. So in summary, the difference between broilers and layers, you can just see broilers as a sprint race where you strive to reach the end point, which is a target weight, at the shortest possible time, normally 6 weeks. While layers is like a marathon, you take your time. It takes time for the reproductive systems to get developed very well for you to start laying. The startup cost of raising a broiler is very low. With just one broiler, you need one broiler to start making profits in the broiler production. Meanwhile, for that of layer, the startup cost is very high, and you need at least to make reasonable profit, at least 500 layers. If you have the budget, you can make it 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. You know, poultry is all about game of numbers. Not minding that you make a profit from one broiler. If you invest more in getting more broilers, you make more profits because it's still a game of numbers. But in summary, the startup cost for broiler is very low because you can start making profits from one bed, but that of layer is very high. Just imagine raising layers for say 18 to 20 weeks before you see the first egg. Let me change it. 18 to 20 weeks is equivalent to 5 months. You're spending money, investing money on a set of beds before you start seeing. At times, from experience, I've seen people who start layer business because of the higher startup costs. They train it to an extent, maybe to 12 weeks. That's point of cage. They decide to sell it off because they are out of budget. They don't have anything to sustain. But that of broiler, within 6 weeks, they are already matured for selling. So startup cost of broiler is definitely lower, and with low number of broilers, you can start seeing profit. But that of layers, you need higher numbers to start seeing profit. The skill set needed for raising broilers. You can just start raising broilers without having any knowledge of anything about poultry. All you just need is to ask 1 or 2 people who are already doing the business. Just tell me, what am I supposed to do? You get the point? Because we normally use broilers entry level into poultry farming. Since the startup cost is low, you can just get few birds and start training them. Meanwhile, for that of layers, you need proper guidance. You need to be experienced. You need the guidance of professionals like poultry veterinarians and animal scientists. If possible, you can still meet a farmer who knows what he's doing to still guide you along the way. You know, layers, you need quite a huge number to start seeing profits, and the startup cost is high. So you don't need to just bring in something and start doing anything anyhow. That's why you need the skill set needed for layers is way higher than that of broilers. We just see broilers entry level into poultry business because you can just get few and use them to learn one or two before you can advance to layers. And if you are new and you want to learn how to raise broilers, I have a playlist of 42 days, day 1 to day 42, that's equivalent to 6 weeks, on how to raise broilers. I raised broilers myself for 6 weeks and I attained 3.2 kg on the average. So I'll be sharing the playlist in the description of this video and in the first comment in the comment section of this video for you to access it. It's free to access. Then for that of layers, I'll be documenting by January 2023. It depends on when you're watching this video anyway. I'll be documenting how to raise layers from day 1 to 5 months. Daily I'll be documenting everything for you to access. So it depends when you're watching this video. If you're watching this video right now in 2022, that means just wait for the series documentation by January 2023. But if you're watching it in January 2023, just check the link in the description of this video, look for the playlist for that of layers, and then get yourself educated before you go into the layer farming business. Between layers and broilers, which one needs more attention, which one gets sick easily, which one needs more treatment, regular treatment? Broilers have a short lifespan, 6 weeks. Within these 6 weeks, if you follow proper guidance, your broilers have no reason to be sick. You just raise them without any problem. And also the vaccinations in between and the preventive prophylactic medications in between are just few. Like for the vaccination, we'll have just the Newcastle vaccination, Lasota, and then we'll have the infectious bursar disease vaccination, which is Gomboro. You just do them 2 times. 2 times Newcastle, 2 times Gomboro. But for that of layers, layers are going to stay a longer time. They have a longer lifespan. They are more prone to being infected. They are more prone to being exposed to diseases, and their vaccination schedule is too long. Just take layers. Everything you did in raising broilers, you also do it in layers. And after 6 weeks, you've sold up the broilers. These layers will still be there with you, and they will still go another 12 weeks to make it up to 18 weeks, or another 14 weeks to make it up to 20 weeks before they start laying. And actually, when they start laying, you still have routine medications you still be giving to them. And another problem with layers is, even when they have started laying, there are still routine vaccinations and medications you keep giving to them, which affects their egg as well. Like if you give a laying bird antibiotics, the egg production will drop for some days. If you deworm it, it will drop for some days. If you vaccinate it, it will drop for some days. Then if there is a disease condition, the laying eggs, the production will drop for some days. But that of broilers is just like straightforward. If they get sick, you treat them and move along. They will still be eating and still be gaining their weight. While that of layers, only the vaccination routine in layers. At first you start giving everything in the drinking water, which is easier. Then later you migrate into injecting them individually. We have the coryza, we have the the Newcastle. Most of the Newcastles oil based are injected. We have there are a lot of them. We have the pox and that. So the treatment and medication schedules for that of broiler is just small, and that of layers is way too high. So, and checking by their lifespan, disease occurrences happen more in layers than that of broilers. Tell anybody that I said this, it's more risky to raise layers than broilers. Number one, you need larger number to make money. Number two, the startup cost is high. Number three, they're going to stay for a longer time. So the risk involved in raising layers is way higher than that of broilers. Just 6 weeks, broilers are out. If there is happen to be any risk for broilers, it's just something that will hit you back, and you readjust and continue from where you stop. But that of layer, it will affect something. It will affect the growth, it will affect the development, and then if you finally recover and they are yet to start laying, it will shift the time that they are meant to start laying. Assuming your layers are meant to start laying between 18 to 20 weeks, and any issue happens in between, that date will shift. You might see yourself start laying by 22nd week. So the risk involved in raising layers is way higher than that of broilers, especially in a situation where you are affected by viral infection. Some of them die. You won't throw away the rest now. You will still leave the rest to run through their lifespan till they stop laying. But that of broilers, anything happens in between, few survives. At the end of 6 weeks, you get rid of everybody, you sell everybody off, and then disinfect the premises, wait for some time, and then start afresh again. So the risk level for that of layers is higher than that of broilers. The management and feeding of broilers is kind of straightforward and simple. Yes, in management, broilers need constant light. If you really want to raise them for 42 days, they need 247 lights to keep feeding, and they feed ad lib. That means there should be feed for them 24/7. None of their feeders should get dry. There should always be feed in their feeders. And the lighting system is just straightforward. There should be lights all the time. That's if you want to raise it for 6 weeks. The sense of this light in the night, they're still using these lights to see water, to see feed. They are drinking, they are eating. When they get tired, they sleep, they wake up, they return the same cycle again. But in layers, the lighting program is specific. There are times you start from the early stages, you start from that 24 hours that you are giving to broilers, and gradually you are bringing it down to a certain level. Then when they start laying and your target is to get larger eggs, you can as well raise it up again to say for some hours, but it can't go back to being that 24 hours again. And then the feeding program for layers is quite different. From week 1, they have a feeding schedule, they have a feeding ration that you keep following week after week until you get to when they start laying. Then when they start laying, you switch their feeding program back to ad lib, meaning that there should be feed for them all the time as long as they are seeing. So the management for broilers is just make sure that it's light, there is water, there is feed all the time. That of the layers, you follow their normal feeding schedule and rations until they start laying before you make sure that there is feed all the time. But their lighting system is specific. Weekly it changes. And when it gets to a particular time, you can decide to increase it. Although it's advisable, when it gets to a particular time, you just leave them to be within 12 hours lighting period, which is between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. sundown. The marketing of broilers, this is where it gets tricky. You know, most times it's advisable to enter the broiler business when you already have a market. Because since you are raising them for 6 weeks and you have budgets that will carry them up to 6 weeks, if the birds happen to exceed the 42nd day and enter the 43rd day, they're going to feed actually. And when they feed, you are now feeding them away from the budget. That means you're spending more. You're now spending your profit. So at times it's tricky, and there is a way around this actually. From the 5th week, which is the 35, they are sizable and mature enough to be eaten. You can start selling them off gradually, or you can resort to slaughtering all of them, dress them, and then take them to your cold room or to the commercial cold rooms. But that of layers, marketing is easy. You can never be able to satisfy the demands of egg. No matter how big your farm is, you can never be able to satisfy the demands of egg. So egg demand is always there. Even when the only time you have problem in marketing layers is when they just started laying newly, because people actually don't really know that your farm has layers for sale. And when that happens, you see yourself still having some of the eggs with you. And apart from that too, when the layers start laying newly, the eggs are small and people look at it as if you are bringing nonsense to them. So the marketing tends to be harder in the beginning stage of the laying period. But once it has been established, the eggs get bigger. Apart from getting bigger, people tend to know that this particular farm has eggs. You see people flooding. You won't even be able to meet up the egg demand. There's no way you can meet up egg demand because it keeps rising daily. Egg is considered a complete meal in every home, both in the rich and in the poor families. But that of broilers, you just need to make sure you have the market before you enter into it. Or if you see yourself trying to exceed the 42nd day, the advice is just slaughter them, take them to the cold room, and then gradually sell them from there. Profitability. Well, before I go into this, let's just have an agreement. Poultry is a game of numbers. The more birds you have, the more money you make. That's agreed. Let's move over to broilers. It takes you 6 weeks to raise broilers and sell them off. Let's move over to layers. It takes you 18 to 20 weeks to raise layers before they start laying. Now, this 18 to 20 weeks that is taking you to raise layer before they start laying the first egg, you can use it to run about 3 batches of broilers and sell them off. How will you make more money in broilers? If you have larger numbers, if you are raising larger numbers, let's say you are raising 500, 1,000, 5,000, you'll be seeing massive return on investment. Within 6 weeks, you'll be seeing it regularly. But out of layers, yes, have a higher startup fund. When you've already started it and they've started laying, these birds are going to lay for a very long time. Some of them will lay up to 1 year, some will lay up to 1.5 years, some will lay up to 2 years. In fact, there is no end date to when a chicken will stop laying. It now depends on the farmer. What makes a farmer say these birds are old, it's time to sell them off, is when the birds stop giving the farmer profits. You know, when the birds start laying, gradually they start feeding themselves through the sales of egg. Gradually you start making profit after feeding the birds and using the remaining money to run the farm operations, pay the farm attendants and other expenses. You start noticing that you start getting profit to put in your pocket, you start paying yourself and also having profit to save in the bank. Gradually you notice that the layers will give you profit enough to pay back all the expenses you made on their head within that 5 months before they started laying. And also another good thing about that of layers is that at the end of the day, when they've stopped giving you that money, when they are not able to feed themselves again, that's when you consider them old. You can still sell them off like meat, just as broilers. At this point, I know you'll be waiting for me to suggest for you which one is more profitable, which one you should go into. The truth of the matter is I won't. I've already told you what you need to know about this in these videos. Now, there are some things you need to consider before you go into any of them. You can do both. I will still share how to do both anyway. But the things you need to consider is, number one, your availability. How available are you? If you are not always available and you still want to run this farm effectively, you can go into broilers. Maybe the period you take leave from office, say 3 weeks leave, 1 month leave, you come invest your time on raising the broilers, and then the remaining balance of the time needed to raise them, like say the remaining 2 weeks, you can outsource it to someone else or maybe to the farm attendant alone to do. Number two is how much you have, the startup fund. Do you have enough money to run layer farming? If you don't, and you don't know where to get in case it gets to the time to loan money from someone, I think the suggestion I will give you is to do broilers, do several batches, several sets, and then be saving the profits to have enough money before you go into layers. And then the third one is patience. Everything about layer is patience. So are you patient enough? If you're patient enough to do layers, you can go on and do layers instead of doing broilers. But my recommendation, you can do the two actually, and this is how to do it. If you are low on fund, I would recommend you just have like 2 pen houses, maybe a smaller one for the broilers and a bigger one for the layers, and then you just wait a little on the layer section. You start with broilers. You get the point? All your profits from the broilers, make sure you are saving it. As the profits, return on investment is coming, don't just squander it, be saving it. When you feel that you have enough, still be running that your broiler business, and then you gradually start the layers from day old. You already have savings from what you got from the broilers, and you are still running another broiler batch. That's how to combine the two. For us over here in the farm, we actually started with layers, and around the 12th week, the 12th, 13th and 14th week, we entered into a challenge, and the challenge was monetary challenge. You get the point? What saved us was because we have places to loan money from. We had people who had our backs. Not all farmers have this, and that's why many farmers, although before we were able to approach these guys to help us, family, friends, to loan us money, which we already completely paid back. Before we did that, we first of all considered the possibility of selling these guys off and then using the money to start again. But on the contrary, we decided to go loan money. Now, some farmers don't have access to these loans. Some farmers don't have who to loan money to them. Some government commercial premises don't loan money to farmers who don't have enough collateral. At times in Nigeria, you need some certain amount of connections to get loans. You need some commitments You need to have been able to meet up some requirements to be able to get agri loans. Some of them are based on connection. So you see farmers reaching a particular point in layer farming and then selling it off, which was never part of their plans. Although some people actually start the layer business to sell when they are 12 weeks old. It's called point of cage. Some sell when they're 16 weeks old. That one is called point of lay. You get the point? But in order to do this and you don't have the budget to support yourself, that's the mistake we did, which if we are to redo this again, we'll certainly start with broilers. Raise several batches of broilers, keep the profits, and then start layers. Still be running the broilers, because after 6 weeks you are getting rid of the set and then starting a new batch. Probably after 1 week you are still running the layers. All the money being made from the broilers you divert to the layers. At a point when you finally start getting your best laying, you'll be happy with this. So in fact, the layers will even be able to make you recover, pay back the broilers the money you took from them. That's the difference I can give you right now about laying this. Now, if you want to know how to run a successful poultry business from the scratch, I implore you to visit the link in the description of this video, sign up to our newsletter. There I'll be sending you mails on how to do this. I'll make sure you don't miss any video. I'll also send you video links anytime I do a new video like this. If you are new to this channel, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you have any question, also drop it in the comment section. And that's it for this video, guys. See you next time.